Leadership Summit by IIFT, and the National Operations Summit by Optima, the National Leadership Summit by Systemic, the National HR Summit by Synergia, the National Finance Summit by Capital, and the 21st Economics and Public Policy Summit under the Guidelines by Francis. We are thrilled to continue with even more excitement today. We have three power pack summits lined up, each designed to spark new ideas and foster deep discussion across diverse fields. Get ready to be inspired, challenge your perspectives, and network with some of the best minds in the industry. Let's make the increase just as impactful and insightful and memorable as the last 2 days. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the National Marketing Summit 2024. Today, we deep dive in the dynamics of ever-evolving world of marketing, where trends change faster than we can scroll through our feeds. As we all know, marketing isn't just about selling products anymore. It's about creating experiences, building stories, and yes, sometimes even going viral for the right reasons. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon the Brandwagon Club coordinators to officially kick off the summit. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the National Marketing Summit 2024, being hosted by Brandwagon. We're thrilled to have such a bright audience here with us today to explore the today's theme, the future of digital branding in a connected world. Brandwagon, the marketing and research club at IIFT, serves as a breeding ground for tomorrow's giants in the field of sales and marketing. As one of the most sought-after student-driven clubs on campus, Brandwagon aims to bridge the gap between classroom learning and the dynamic world of marketing. From bringing epic ad campaigns and exciting brand stories to curating informative content so that IIFT stays abreast of its current trends, Brandwagon aims to encapsulate all things marketing and help the students dive deeper into the fascinating domain. With this, we would like to welcome our distinguished panel of experts who will be sharing their insights on today's theme. We would like to start by welcoming our first panelist, Ms. Ishita Gupta ma'am on stage right now. Ishita ma'am currently serves as the Senior Brand Manager for Polo and Nestlé, where she plays a key role in driving brand strategy, consumer engagement, and growth of one of the most iconic confectionery brands in India. Ma'am has worked in pivotal roles across industries, including her tenure at IIFT, where she has been instrumental in leading brand strategy for frequent pure brands like Budweiser, Corona, and Coca-Cola. Her expertise lies in digital marketing, brand storytelling, consumer insights, and experiential marketing. Please join me in welcoming Ma'am. Now we would like to welcome our second panelist, Ms. Vamita Singh ma'am on the stage. On behalf of the entire IIT fraternity and Brandwagon, we'd like to welcome Ms. Vamita Singh ma'am. Ma'am is the brand manager for Taj Mahal and Lipton Tea at Hindustan Unilever. A proud IIM Ahmedabad alumna, Vamita ma'am has worked extensively across various aspects of brand building, from product innovation to digital transformation. Ma'am brings with her a rich experience in brand management, strategic marketing, and consumer insights in the FMCG sector. Beyond her professional achievements, ma'am is passionate about books, economics, and podcasts, constantly seeking to broaden her knowledge.
Now we would like to welcome our next panelist, Ms. Asma Joshi on stage. Ma'am Ma'am is a brand manager at Akash Educational Services Limited, where she has been instrumental in enhancing brand visibility and driving growth. Ma'am holds a bachelor's degree in English Honours from Hansard College and an MBA in Marketing and Strategy from Douglas College. Ma'am is the founder of the Social Import, a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping businesses enhance their online presence. She has also taken on various freelance roles at firms like My Personal Mentor, Team Systems, and Upmedia. Please join me again with a huge round of applause in welcoming Ms. Aspirations. Next up, we would like to welcome Ms. Anuj Kumar on stage. On behalf of the entire IIFT fraternity, the Brandwagon team is thrilled to welcome Mr. Anuj Kumar. Anuj sir is a seasoned marketing and strategy professional and a proud alumnus of IIFT. Sir is a brand manager at Dabur India Limited. He brings a wealth of experience in brand management, international marketing, and management consulting with a strong focus on the pharmaceutical industry. His diverse sector experiences also spans consumer healthcare, Ayurveda, and fast-moving health goods, making him a well-rounded expert in the field. Sir has also authored a white paper which is published in National Library of Medicine. Now, we would like to welcome our next panelist, Ms. Shreya Chabra on stage. With a robust background as a software engineer at Microsoft, to follow her passion for marketing, ma'am joined IIFT Delhi in 2016 and is currently a senior account manager at Google, where she manages a portfolio of growing businesses in the Indian market. Her diverse experience includes working with Godrej Consumer Products. She specializes in consumer behavior, market research, digital marketing, and branding. Shreya ma'am was a valued member of Brandwagon during her time at IIFT, and I'm sure being at this key event brings back fond memories for her. Please join me again in welcoming Ms. Shreya Chabra.
Now, we would like to welcome our moderator for the event, Dr. Ishita, who will be guiding today's discussion. Dr. Duck is the program director of the doctoral program at IIFT and has been a dedicated faculty member in marketing. With over 15 years of teaching experience, she has made significant contributions to the academic community and is renowned for her expertise in marketing concepts and practices. Her deep understanding of the subject matter and her passion for mentoring students have greatly enriched the learning environment at IIFT. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ishita. Brandwagon conducts Smart Scribble, the national article writing competition designed to gather innovative insights from students across the country, challenging them to craft articles on the latest topics in marketing and branding. This year, we received an overwhelming response with over 350 registrations. Participants explored a diverse array of thought-provoking themes, including the role of technology in shaping brand perception, brand storytelling in the age of short attention spans, and the role of AI in hyper-personalization. Brace ourselves as we unveil the 2024 edition of the much-awaited annual marketing magazine of Brandwagon, Margdarshan, based on the theme "The Future of Digital Branding in a Connected World." In an era where brands are constantly evolving alongside technology, this issue delve into the transformative part of digital advancements with insightful articles unpacking trends that redefine modern branding. We would like to present each of our guests with a copy of the Brandwagon, Brandwagon annual magazine and request them to come forward and unveil it. We now request Preeti ma'am to lead the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, students, for the kind introduction of the panel members and also congratulations on the launch of the Mark Darshan, which is the 2024 edition for Brandwagon. Uh, since we are in the middle of events where we are discussing about a lot the great reset and we see the role of digital marketing as being a catalyst in the growth of the business. And today on the panel we have brand managers and from the corporate we have people who have a lot of experience and they are representing different brand archetypes as well. So before we start the session, I would request the panel members to discuss some of their journeys pertaining to marketing and branding. And are there any specific initiatives which you want to discuss with our yeah, we can start.
Hi everyone, very good morning. So when we talk about marketing per se, right now, while the traditional way FMCG or say other sectors have been working was mostly offline, mostly through media like TV, radio, etc. But now there's been a massive change that has come over the last 10 years where your consumers are increasingly moving online. And I mean, how many of us even have cable TV anymore? At least the audience is internet focused. And it actually makes a lot of sense for us that we understand that how the consumer is behaving, what touch points are they looking at online as well as offline, and for brands it becomes all the more important to ensure their presence on all these touch points as well. So when you talk about the interconnectedness, it becomes all the more relevant, and I think that's going to be a really good topic of discussion. Yeah.
So, as my colleague Shreya rightly mentioned, that consumers are moving online. I want to ask you all. It's 10:30 a.m. How much time do you think you already spent on your mobile since now? Any guesses? I know you're not supposed to use your mobile right now. Don't check. But how much time do you think you would already spent? Any grade? At least an hour. More. At least an hour. Minimum 1 hour. It's just 10:30 a.m. in the morning. So that just proves the point, right? We are the consumers. Like they're all the consumers. We are the ones that have to and you already spent an hour. It's the device that we wake up in the morning and we see first. It's the device that we see before we go to sleep. It's the device that is making so many other things obsolete. Alarm phones, cameras maybe, speakers could be next to go, I think. But mobile phone is slowly and steadily becoming our world, right? And hence it's becoming more and more important for brands to know and understand how to market to this digital consumer. There was a time when traditional marketing used to be very, very prominent, prevalent. I think a large chunk of the investments in any FMCG used to go to traditional marketing, which is your TV, your print, your out of home. But today, it is a mandate for FMCG companies to increase their spends in digital marketing, and that's because of the consumer shift that way. One ma'am mentioned one campaign or something that is done, and the one example that I'd like to share with you all. So I worked on the brand launch before this, and I was working. We were targeting teenagers. Um, we were looking to again a very cluttered world. There's so much content around topics already. We're looking to reach out to them in ways that they call us, they remember us, and we are able to see it all the time. So in a lot of our researches that we do with consumers, it came out that music is one of the main passion points. It's really prominent, it's growing. They also it came out that there's a spike in rap music. And we've seen MTV model we're talking to the right consumer. So rap is something that's growing. If you see most of the OTT movies, they have rap songs at the background, at the forefront, which wasn't the case earlier. So we actually collaborated with rap artist Gupta. We co-created a song with him, a rap song with him, which was about the munch proposition, so that it becomes or it seems so seamless, so authentic to the consumer when they listen to a music video by the car. They just feel that this is a music video. It's actually a munch proposition that is being communicated to them, and that's how seamless and authentic you have to be in today's digital world. So those are the two steps.
So I'll try to uh, kind of bring the perspective from the healthcare and pharmaceutical, right? So I work at Apple, and post COVID, if you look at, right, there's a lot of spike in the understanding and awareness, of the consumers, right? So at Dabur, what we did is, we have opened 360-degree online doctor consultation, right? Which is Dabur Arogi. So anyone can call up, right, the number, and it's a free consultation, and which in turn helps, people from far flung areas, right, the rural market, right, to get the right advice. Yeah. So in today's world, if you look at the health and fitness is one of the core what you call domain in which everybody wants to get in. Yeah. So as a company cover and as a brand manager, what we have done is we have created a 360 community, in which not only the doctors, the healthcare experts, but also the consumers sit in their with their varied experiences, right? How do they manage depression during the times of COVID, right? So it's an interconnected, connected world, and what we see today is that offline and online, there's nothing for that, right? It's all omni-channel, right? It's a unique world. And as we progress, right, this health, fitness, this segment will continue to grow and move, right? So with that, I think we are on the right track.
Yes, sir. Your experience.
Hi, good morning everyone. So just reflecting on my experiences with brands that I have worked with during my freelance journey and now with Akash, I think it's very important to show your presence online to your consumers, especially as Manu said here that we have already spent I think 1.5 hour on our phones. So if your face is not showing on someone's screen, you don't exist. Um, and if I talk about my personal mentors, you guys mentioned that I've worked with them. So it started on a very small scale with just two people trying to help Canadian immigrants find jobs in Canada. And their whole brand was built on Instagram Reels. I can tell you, all they've done is shared success stories, shared their experiences, their struggles of how they actually found a place in a foreign land. And I think that relatability and that accessibility for a brand has come with the digital connect that people see now. So yeah, I think that is the right kind of discussion that we are having, and it's very important for marketing persons to know the value of digital branding right now. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello there. Hi everyone. I think I echo what everyone on the panel has said, right? So there are two fundamental shifts happening because people have become more connected. Number one is you can reach them in new ways. So, like the panelists mentioned, traditionally you only had TV or you had print, but now you have a plethora of options. So, as a brand manager, decision making has become way more complex because you have to choose between different media. And something that Asma touched upon, which is what is your brand's identity online? That's super critical because we're all online. We're looking for what a brand stands for. And I have one example of how we did this, especially for an old age brand. So before my current role, I was handling Vim, the dishwash brand, which is like a classic brand, like it's been there for over 50 years. But we soon realized that we're not that relevant to the newer audiences. And we did this very interesting study where we asked consumers, what do you think of when you hear BIM, etc. And younger audiences kept calling us Amitabh Bachchan. And they're like, oh, old classic. And they kept calling like newer brands, like more organic or natural brands, Deepika Padukone. And we didn't want to be an Amitabh Bachchan when there's a Deepika Padukone in the market, right? So we were like, okay, we need to modernize our image because the next set of consumers will not choose us because they'll think we're like what your Dada Dadi's brand. And so a brand like Vim had to enter the digital conversation and really create an identity online. And what we did was we launched a maybe controversial campaign called Vim Black, but we were like, okay, we need to do shock and awe to get people at least talking about dishwash because why would anyone talk about Bhattachan, right? So we launched this campaign, which was this fake product for men, dishwashing for men, because as a brand we stand for equality of chores. And it did get eyeballs, it did get virality, and it got our brand somewhere online. And then, of course, consistently building our social media presence. So going from like 0 followers to 10,000 followers in a year is a big feat for a dishwashing brand. So I think that's echoing what the other panelists said, right? You need to really work hard on creating an identity online. Uh,
Thank you. So one of the takeaways I find is that the marketer should be working on their brands not becoming a dinosaur. So let us begin the conversation with the tip of the iceberg. So when I say tip, there are increasingly marketers who think about the word brand loyalty, which is a mythical term in certain categories itself. So I'd like to ask you, Ishita, that are there any specific digital platforms would you would like to leverage to create community building, specifically in the digital world? And what are the platforms where you find it most effective?
Right. So it's a very interesting question. You know, every brand would want to build communities. They would want that people talk about their brand and actively discuss and engage with their brand. And you know, we have like a ton of loyalists, but it's very difficult to create authentic communities. And I'll tell you why. What I realized is that one, you need to find a group of people who are very passionate about something. So you cannot build a community on a decision or a topic that consumers are not passionate about. You cannot, like what was mentioned, you cannot build a community on buying soap. Most likely, it's difficult. You cannot build a community on buying money. It's difficult. But you can build a community on health. You can build a community on fitness because that's something that your consumer is passionate about, is actively engaging with, and would want to know, discuss, talk about. You cannot force them to talk about your brand just because you want them to. That's very, very important. The second thing is that you need to add value. So no matter what your brand is, what your brand stands for, until you are adding value to the consumers, like in some way or the other, they will not engage with your community. Now, in my experience, community building happens depending on the interest or the cohort or the activity that they're interested in. So, some communities that I've seen in the recent past being built very, very successfully. One is fitness. I think Nike has happened to that very, very successfully in India with apps and maybe Meta and WhatsApp channels as well. But ma'am was asking for the platform. The platform depends on where the consumer is, on where you can add the best value. So if
for fitness, you need to have an app which can, let them track, let them monitor, create a social engagement, with a competition parameter to it, and hence the app works better than anything else. If you just have a WhatsApp group talking about fitness, it may not be the most engaging to serious fitness loyalists. That's one. Another one that I've seen built in the recent past is gaming. Gaming has grown in India and now. There are these mobile battles, mobile Premier League, and whatnot happening in gaming. And the gaming community has built both in live streaming, in apps, on YouTube, very, very active, people are very active, engaged gamers. Another one that I've seen in my experience at Nestlé Plus is nutrition, and especially the mothers caring about health and nutrition for their children. Very, very active and engaged community. Platforms that they are built on WhatsApp, maybe First Life, because that's where the mothers are at and that's why they are more active. If you tell them to download a special app or do something on web to be part of the community, may not work. You have to go to the platform that is very authentic and native to the consumer that you are talking to, and hence it depends on where you can add the most value and what is it that you are engaging with. These are the two foundations of building a community.
Asla, since you are working in the education sector and we see that it's very interesting how brands are building loyalty in education sector itself. I would say it transcends generations also sometimes. So how do you see loyalty being built in education sector on digital platforms?
I think, as you said, like in education sector, one edge that coaching centers and institutes get is that the name builds as the students start getting success. So if the output is good, the word of mouth is very strong. With that, when you add the digital touch to it, as I said, like the presence is very important these days. I think it starts building from there. I personally speaking from all the testimonials and the talks that I have had with Akash and the alumni here, uh, I have had people who sent their firstborn to Akash. He is an IIT, and then their second born is also in Akash, and he's preparing for medical. So I think it's amazing also that people have that trust when they see the legacies of these education sectors coming together. And I think in today's world, we also have a lot of education institutes that are coming in existence from their online presence. And I think that the way that they come from digital to physical world is also amazing. I think they've used their loyalty that they've had on their YouTube channels or their social media presence and the faces that they have had on their screens for long to actually get the people to visit them physically. So I think it's the legacy, the success of those education sectors, the actual hard work that goes in, along with the digital, I think the presence that you build. I think if I tell you that okay, there's this some coaching center at the corner of the street, and so and so is the name of that institute, the first instinct would be to Google it online. We go and search it, we look for reviews, we look for their social media channels, and probably look for their YouTube videos also. If there's a good content that's educational and that's relevant to your child, and I think just giving them a look and feel of your institute or your education organization online helps you build that loyalty.
Since you're working in healthcare and building trust in healthcare is very critical and at the same time difficult healthcare. So what has been your experiences with regard to digital platforms?
So, from a consumer point of view, if you look at right, the trust in healthcare is whatever very very critical. Right? So whatever medication or whatever drug that we take, we want to be very sure that it's of the best quality. Right? And building on to what my colleague Ishita said, the what we call health and fitness, right? The majority of the community, if you look at today, they are in the zone of mental fitness, mental health. Right? Uh, some 10 years back, 20 years back, we would not have studied community. And I hope we would have watched a beautiful movie called as A Beautiful Mind, right? Professor John Nash, right, who was awarded the Nobel Prize. He used to suffer from a disease called as schizophrenia, right? So imagine the plight of not a patient, but the plight of a caregiver, his wife, right? Very, very cumbersome. And I worked in a company called Gupta, the Global Fortune 500, right? Wherein we should develop, brands for this, right? Schizophrenia, depression, yeah. So imagine somebody looks very healthy, happy, and at a flick, you know, it, the person just gets, into a different domain. It's very difficult for somebody to understand. If I have a fractured hand and if I have a plaster, right? People will have sympathy, they are not like it. But a person who looks very hale and happy, Sushant Singh Rajput for that matter, right? A classical example. Many people did not believe that the actor has committed suicide, right? He looks very fit and fine. But today, with the onset of digital media, we look that there are a lot of communities. And the first thing that what communities have done is they give a hope not only to the patient, but also to the caregiver, to the family. Yeah. The second part is that the online communities, if you look at, they have become a very big force to reckon with. Some 20 years back or 15, 20 years back, a caregiver sitting in Bihar or some in Andhra Pradesh, right, or a patient suffering from dementia might not have anything, right, to know how, what to do and what not to do. Today, you will be surprised that in US and Europe, right, and also in India, there are self-help groups, support groups, and they lobby with the government for the pricing, yeah, which is an important kind of community to get the policy shaping done. So right now, this year, we have a rare disease kind of segment wherein PM Modi has kind of intervened and kind of capped the prices, right? There's a lot of capping that has happened for the heart, stents and all. So this is the power of a community. 20 years back, somebody might not have that power, but today, and from a platform, if you look at Facebook started that, but we are seeing a lot of communities coming up on Insta. I think everybody must be aware that health and fitness and all. The other is the natural medications, right? 20 years back, Ashwagandha might not, many people might not have known that. But today, if you go to US, you go to Europe, yeah, many people they are very aware that what ashwagandha is. Yeah. So that is a power that we are dealing today with the digital. And as my colleague was saying that a brand manager is now spoiled with the choice that we need to make. Right? It's a very complex world, but at the same time, it's a beautiful world that you need to grapple with a lot of complexities and kind of data points at the same time. So I think pretty much that going forward, the entire community from a healthcare standpoint will definitely shape up into bigger things and will definitely help in the interventions and the policies for the betterment of the consumer.
If we talk about this interesting character called consumer, we see that the attention span is also reducing with time. And it becomes very challenging for brand managers to create impactful storytelling, especially across the channels itself. So I was recently, yesterday, I was in fact seeing the Google's Mela experience, which Google has created, bringing in back the sudden childhood nostalgia feelings as well. So what strategies have worked for you when it comes to the brand experiences which you have created for customers?
Thank you so much for this question, and I think it's extremely relevant to the discussion that we are having today because, and I think we're going to only harp on again and again and again about the consumer, right? And consumer touchpoints because the one thing that I want all of you to take away from this discussion is customer centricity. And for me, my customer is not at the end of the day, say, an Ishita's customer or Bhavika's customer or Aska's customer. Radhika's customer, right? My customers are these brands. And for me, it becomes all the more imperative not to just understand what the brand wants, but what the brand's consumer wants, right? And we know that's one. Second thing that I want to talk about is the fact that, like yesterday itself, I was just working on some tech, and there we figured that a consumer, it obviously depends on the kind of product that you're working on. Say if you're going to buy a car, there are at least 28 touch points that you look at before you make a decision. Versus say, and it's a sticky category, right? It's not a category where you can switch. Like today, I want to buy a Seltos, but tomorrow I'll go buy an XUV. No, it just happens once. And say a category like chocolate. Today I might want to have a munch, but tomorrow I will have a cup. That's easy. So loyalty in that space is difficult. So it also depends on the kind of product that you're also looking at, right? So and given the fact that options are plenty, how do you stand out? You stand out by the story that you tell. Because at the end of the day, even in the digital sense, emotions are what will help you connect with the consumer. Obviously, emotions plus your product proposition. At the end of the day, if the product doesn't work, then your consumer is unhappy. No other what's the point of it, right? So, ensuring one, that you have a good story. Second, you know your consumer really well. Three, you have a solid product to back it, right? And then let's come to what are some of the formats that we're looking at. So, Instagram Reels, they're actually, right now, if you look at it, 75% of Meta's monetization in India is actually happening through Instagram Reels. And that is why you see the advent of stuff like YouTube Shorts. Thankfully, TikTok is not in the conversation right now, but once it comes, it's going to be another battle altogether. But so, what are people doing right now? They're watching an Instagram Reels and they're probably going to YouTube for a long form content, and then finally then they're looking at say reviews, and then they're finally purchasing the car, right? So, as a brand and as my client, whatever I tell my clients also is one, be very consistent, be very sure like the consistency of communication across all channels needs to be maintained. That's one. Two, the messaging needs to come ASAP with the shorter attention spans that we have. So earlier we had the liberty of making having the song first, then the brand comes out of nowhere, and then you have the proposition. So right now, what we want is what the consumer wants is get to the point. So that's the second part of storytelling that you need to have. And third is credibility. Now that credibility can be obviously for established brands that we have. Credibility obviously comes from stuff like reviews, testimonials, communities, and social listening is actually a very important part of it again. And this will also help brands to understand how they are doing and what they can do to improve. And that obviously goes back again into the kind of story that you want to stitch out for your consumer.
And how does it work for you, Amika? What are the brand experiences which you would want to do?
Yeah, okay. And I think I echo with a lot of what Shreya said, and I just try to give examples of how we do it on the brand side, right? But before I get into that, one thing on attention spans, I beg to differ a little because I still think people are listening to 3 hour podcasts. They are binging a show like when once like a good reality TV show comes, you are binging it all night. You're spending 14 hours. So I think it's not that the attention span has become less, but it's the consideration span that's become less. And what this means is that as a brand, you have very few seconds to hook the consumer. But if you've got that hook, they are willing to engage. So it's really important that you've created that very, very compelling hook for her to watch the entire video or for her to engage with you on YouTube, etc. Right? And what Shreya said, right? You need to have your brand within the first few seconds but still not seem too brandy. It still needs to seem authentic. Second, when she talked about consistency, that's super important because that just helps with branding. For instance, I handle this brand called Taj. which some of you might remember Zakir Hussain, Vatar, and all of that, right? So it helps to then take influencers who are into classical music or things that are anyway associated with art, so that if a consumer is watching it, I've already got her thinking about my brand because I've built these DBAs or distinctive brand assets over a long period of time. And lastly, getting the right story. Again, an example, and an example of omni-channel way of doing this. On Taj, we did this activation, which was it was called Make Santoor. So what we did was in Vijayawada, we made this huge billboard, and which created music when rain fell on it. And it was something that was extremely unthinkable. And while this was great for an offline offering for the consumers of Vijayawada, we created a really interesting video around it, got like Guinness World Record and all of that. And that was a hook. That was a really good story, which we then played on digital because consumers were like, hey, I never thought this can even be possible. That the rain can fall and you can get this round malhar from an outdoor. And so things like that are how you can engage with the consumer. She needs to get some value out of watching your ad or your video, and hence it becomes very very important to have a clutter breaking idea in the first place to hook her into watching your video. So yeah, just examples of what Shreya mentioned from the business side.
That the music of that Vijayawada thing that you mentioned, that was pretty beautiful.
Thank you.
So we have seen that now AI is driving a lot of engagement specifically for the brands and how it is being connected, a strong connection between the brand and the customers also. So Asta, for you, can you share some insights where you find that AI is being used to engage the consumers and to retain the consumers also?
I think if I look at it from a brand perspective and from education sector per se, the AI is really helpful to each and everyone here if we use it judiciously. I think if a brand has this somehow unlocked this, uh, they found the key to unlock how to use it judicially. I think you can get plethora of content through AI and education content through AI that is very relevant to all the students or the people who are associated with those educational institutes. I'll give an example. So we have our this app that's called My Akash app. It's for the students who have enrolled with Akash and who want to have a one-on-one experience with somebody. They're studying and they're stuck at a question and they don't know how to move forward with that question. So all they need to do is go into that app. It has a feature that says ask a question and it's AI driven. So if a student is studying at 3 a.m. and there's no teacher available for him, he can actually just put in the question and get a viable solution with NCRT pages written. So this is the topic, this is the discussed thing, and it also maps out the relevant YouTube videos that the student can go and read through. So the topics get easier for them. Similarly, we have the backend for the teachers where they also have supports through AI where they can plug in curricular questions if they have to. And it really helps them build a stronger curriculum for these students. And I think with competitive exams, especially where Akash is it's with Olympiads, with NEET, with JEE, a lot is happening and a lot is developing over a period of time. So I think it's just helping with a stronger foundation for the students as well. I think that for a student who's in class 9 and studying for foundations in Akash, if he's able to get an answer at 4 a.m. and the curiosity is settled there and then, I think there's nothing more powerful for a student than that. Yeah.
So, Anuj, since you were mentioning about the post-COVID experiences which Dabur has created, how do you find that AI is being, invited to engage and retain the consumers?
So, AI has been a blessing in disguise for the entire pharmaceutical as well as the healthcare industry. Just to drive home the point, Apple, they have two AI-driven modules One is the research kit, in which a kind of researcher sitting in US can collaborate with people from different parts of the world, right? Free of cost. Research kit. Then the second one they have is AI module called as Care Kit. Care Kit is something in which a person suffering from diabetes or whatever, you can monitor, whatever things, and you'll have a free kind of treatment modalities coming in from different, professors and medical associates sitting across the world. So AI has done that a lot. From Java, if I look at, two examples that last year, we had this campaign for our flagship brand called as Dabur Chyawanprash. Yeah. So I think many of us would heard that Chyawanprash stands for immunity and immunity. Yeah. So during this winter time, the onset of infections, bronchial problems, coughing, and all heats up. Yeah. So what we did, we kind of collaborated with an AI what do you call machine, and we created a campaign for 40 cities across the country. These 40 cities, what we did, they were mapped based on two parameters. One was temperature, right? So in Delhi, if the temperature dips below 10 degrees, right? You go to Insta, you go to FB, it will pop up that temperature is down. Are you protected from the cold and cough? If not, please take double shot. So it was more of a thematic one, and as soon as we had this in Kanpur. So Kanpur, if the AQI dips below certain, say spikes up more than 500 or 600, it instantly pops up on your Insta and FB. So this was a very customized kind of campaign that we did, and it had a very good kind of what do you call customer feedback for us. And the other one we just recently did for again for Dabur Chyawanprash, which was with ex-Indian captain Mr. Saurabh Ganguly at Kolkata, right? So on the Durga Puja, right, there was a customized messages which were given out to that particular person. So what you have to do, we created an app and a link on the Insta and FB, wherein if you want to get wished by the captain of the Indian team, ex-captain Saurabh Ganguly, you just have to click in on it. Then Saurabh Ganguly will have a customized message for you saying that Dr. Preeti, if you have this problem. Yeah. So it kind of works very well, the topical applications now. And there are certain days we had World Heart Day on it, right? So that time we created a lot of AI-driven content for especially people who are with stress, and that is a teaching where we look a lot of corporate people, people sitting here and people who are there. So for heart, typically the bad one is the what do you call oil, cholesterol. There's a lot of data on the table suggesting not cholesterol, but stress is also one of the important problems for the heart attacks. Yeah, you're seeing a lot of people dying. Yeah. So that was a very AI-driven campaign that we did, and it felt a very good result.
So Ishita, how does AI work for Nestlé?
Right. So, I think my colleagues here have given a lot of interesting, very neat examples already. I just try to, maybe structure it a little and give one more example from my end. So, what my colleagues mentioned is that as a marketer, you AI two ways. One, you use it to add better value to the consumer, whoever you are targeting. Second, you use it to enable better marketing for your brand. And the team here has shared examples for both. So, what Asna shared with an AI chat for the consumers to be able to answer questions, add better value to the consumer. What Anuj mentioned with Dabur Chyawanprash, wherein the communication would go if the temperature dropped beyond a certain point into setting time, which is enabling us to be better marketers. So these are two different segments wherein we are able to do AI. In the first one, there is add better value. I think my favorite in the chocolate category is actually Cadbury. When they did it with Shah Rukh Khan, when they created used AI, and they are the first movers, very strong in terms of exploring new technology. When they created an ad with Shah Rukh Khan, where any small retailer could actually use AI to create an ad advertising with Shah Rukh Khan
and it was also then backed by category. We promoted geographically in that area. That is a very strong value add to the retailer that I'm a small retailer, I'm getting Shah Rukh Khan to be able to say the name of my store and to promote my store. That's an amazing value add. They would have created loyalists and build a brand for themselves. Very well strong. The second one, I think, is in terms of content creation, which I think Afra also mentioned, and actually Google does really well. Google YouTube has this capability called Ad Creative Studio, wherein it enables brands to create content in real time, to create cohorts of consumers real time, and to pitch that content to those cohorts real time. So, for example, I think Colgate did this, wherein they created, they wanted to reach out to consumers who were interested in makeup. So in real time, they targeted consumers who are, say, for example, searching for lipstick videos, top lipstick videos or makeup videos on YouTube, created a content which combined Colgate as a great compliment to your smile along with your lipsticks and served it to that consumer who's already looking for a lipstick video. So very topical, very relevant to that consumer at that time, which makes the content creation so much more richer. That is something that you cannot possibly imagine or do without AI. And I think in both these aspects, AI definitely there's a lot to offer, and I can't imagine what the future holds in terms of leveraging AI.
So I think because of internet, the consumers are also getting a lot of empowerment. We are more aware about everything. And thanks to Google, the moment I have any doubt as a consumer, we are able to search things. So how do you think, Shreya, that brands should be, creating some sort of a balance between personalization and with personalization with this privacy?
So just wanted to take a minute to talk about the previous question that you had, which is around AI. So AI, as much as it's an enabler, it's also something that we need to be cautious about because at the end of the day, it's something that is taking a lot of your data, crunching a lot of data, and giving you an output, right? And that output may be right, that output may be wrong. So at the end of the day, it depends on the person who's using the AI to take a call, whether it's right or wrong. So even when it comes to marketing or branding, for that matter, brands have to be extremely cautious of the way that they end up using it. It's AI is not just for the sake of it. It's you have a use case, you want to solve for it, go ahead and do it. That's one. And now coming to the next question, ma'am, that you spoke about, which was personalization and privacy. Now, privacy is something which is it's a conversation that's been going on since the last, I think, 4 years, 5 years since GDPR was launched. And in California, obviously, there is another policy that's coming out. In India, also, they're having conversations around whether the data of the consumer should be within data centers in India or not. So privacy is extremely important, and I think both. And there are three parts to it. One is the consumer, second is the advertiser, and third is the tech company. Right. So from a user perspective, one giving control to the user to ensure what in terms of how we can end up using their data and consent is extremely important. So one, as a consumer, we should know that okay, this is what I'm giving my data to, and two, am I aware that this setting particularly exists or not? So that is from the consumer perspective. Second, let's come to the advertiser perspective, where you have all the brands who are sitting here. Right? So earlier there was this. I'm going to go a little technical here and follow up with Gina. Okay. So there was this concept of cookies, correct?
So you ended up saving a lot of the information related to a person, what they are searching, what they are browsing for, etc. on in a cookie. Correct? Now those cookies are getting deprecated. What does that essentially mean? That essentially means that no that a person that an advertiser or a brand or a tech company can no longer follow you on the different pages that you're visiting. For example, Shreya has a pet. Shreya loves heads up for tails. So Google or any other tech company or any other brand could leverage that and know that Shreya loves dogs or Shreya has a dog and I can upsell or how any other pet brand can actually upsell a product to me. But now that is not going to be the case because cookies are getting deprecated. So what do you do in that sense? One, your brands or the advertiser becomes all the more responsible for the way that they consume the data of the users like you. So here one thing is a brand needs to be very abreast of what are the technology changes that are happening and adapt to them accordingly. Second, because you will not be able to get consumers' data again, so what you do is you end up using first party data, which essentially means that if Shreya is visiting Akash's website, then if Shreya has consented Akash to use her data, then in that case, Akash will have a repository of data that they can look at. So that's in terms of first party data usage that becomes important. Third is leveraging that first party data, which basically means that your AI becomes important, right? Because from that data, they can take out insights that, okay, this person who is between the age groups of 18 to 24, living in a specific pin code, pursuing, and if that person ends up pursuing, say, a college, ends up pursuing, say, schooling from ABC school, is more likely to go for need versus a consumer who is between say the age groups of 14 to 16 staying in ABC village, that is something that Akash can do now, right? So just to sum it up, for an advertiser, one, stay abreast of technology, two, end up take users' consent for using their data, and third, leverage your first party data to take out insights and do your marketing accordingly. Now let's come to the third part, which is the tech company or the advertising platform. So the advertising platform again needs to be cognizant of, has to work a lot with policymakers to understand how the laws are being structured. That's one. Two, do a lot of consumer awareness that these are settings that exist for you to take care of your privacy. Three, they also have to, so user education is one, advertiser education is second, third is product development, where they have to ensure that they develop products which maintain the efficacy of targeting for brands while at the same time ensuring that users' privacy is still at the core. So I think it's a very difficult job that advertising platforms end up juggling when it comes to maintaining a balance between privacy, targeting, and personalization. So that was the entire ecosystem of privacy as a whole that we encounter.
So I think it was quite an insight for the audience as well. So Monica, how does HQL balance personalization with privacy?
Yes, I think Shreya gave a very, very fantastic overview of the change that's happening in the ecosystem, right? And on the brand side, key takeout is that, yeah, we had a good run over the last few years where you could advertise and use precision marketing to get these cohorts from advertising platforms like Google or Meta, where, like she mentioned, if I want to go to a particular kind of audience, these platforms had the ability to give me that level of targeting, which was great. But of course, laws are changing, rules are changing, and so now as a brand, we really, really have to focus on one key. And ways to do that, right, are how do you get somebody to, like, first, of course, is very important is consent. So, how do you get somebody to give that consent to you? is the only way that you're offering them something very valuable in return, and you need to give them a reason to consent to giving their data to you, and hence building building a platform that's beyond the product is important. So two three ways that we do this. One is now we need to increasingly focus on maybe having B2C sites. So a brand like Lakme can get away with it because there's so much more than just selling makeup, right? There's education and there's letting people who are into fashion and makeup know about what's happening in the world. So you have to now change your strategy to be more than just the product that you sell. So whether it's Lakme Fashion Week or giving tips, etc. So these are ways that you can get people onto your D2C site, and then people are a little more willing to share, of course, relevant data with you, and that's how you create a 1P audience, so who you can target and retarget and analyze for further marketing. The other way would be communities, like the panel has already mentioned, having a solid Instagram page. You build that over a time period. You get 1 million followers. You can target those followers because that's information that you already have. So while in the past 4 5 years you could have gotten away with like telling Google or Meta कि ये cohort कर लो वो cohort कर लो, you can't do that anymore. And so it's important that you are creating your own 1P data that you can use as a brand. Interesting time. I think a new way of thinking about marketing needs to come about at this point. And at the end of the day, it's all about the consumer. So like Shreya mentioned, you can't be taking data just for the sake of it. It's important to be transparent. Okay, we're taking XYZ thing so that we can give you this personalized product. So brand like Nestlé is taking information like what kind of hair you have, where you live, etc. Only to give you a better recommendation of what product will fit your hairstyle. So these are things that a brand needs to do. You have to tread a very fine line on where you become like creepy and too personalized versus being genuinely helpful for the consumer.
Now we have seen that brands are using social media not to listen to the consumers to take real-time feedback as well. So are there any use cases Anuj, where you have seen that Dabur is using and listening to consumers on social media and using it for their new product development strategies?
We at Dabur, we have a dedicated command center. So in command center, what we do is we kind of profile the brand sentiments. We have a tool where in which we do a lot of brand sentiment kind of analysis, right? And not only from the brand perspective, but also from the category perspective. Yeah. So just to try to make the point, last year, there was a controversy about a flagship brand of Dabur called as Java Honey, right? That honey crystallizes this and that. Yeah. So what we did was, we kind of understood the sentiment, and we kind of went ahead and hired some of the regional influencers who are into the health and fitness and all to kind of get out there. The other good part of the brand sentiment tool is that you get a lot of insights, for your new formulations and treatments and all. So last year around the same time, what heart rate you were listening and tracking. So there was a lot of noise about heart health, heart issue. Saffola being the leader in that category, right? So, but we wanted to launch something which is very interesting, but at the same time very different from the market leader Saffola. So what we found out was many of the conversations were driving with a herb called as Arjuna, right? Arjuna is a tree, yeah. It's a bark is very useful for the heart health. So then we kind of collaborated with some of the leading cardiologists, the experts of the Ayurveda and all, and we formulated a heart health oil, right, which has the infusions of Arjuna and all other herbs and all, and it's doing wonderfully well. Also at the same point of time, some time back, we had that onion is very useful for the hair oil. Yeah. So there's a brand from Wow which was doing fantastically well, right? We have Dabur Amla as a flagship brand. So when we looked at the brand sentiments, so a lot of category shift was happening from conventional users who were very loyal to the brand like Dabur Amla hair oil, and they were shifting because there was a lot of noise, a lot of clutter on the social media that onion oil is very useful. Right? So we could have gone ahead and launched onion kind of formulation, but what we did, we sort of countered that, with a scientific what you call rationale and all. So brand sentiment tracking and understanding your consumer, and being very near to your consumer, it really helps. And not only from an NPD standpoint, but also to take effective measures. How do you safeguard your loyal customer base? That is reportable.
How does it work for Akash, specifically when you are thinking of new product development?
I think Akash, with 36 years of being in existence, I have, like personally, I am also experiencing this shift in the branding from completely traditional ways to going online and getting the feedback from the students. So the same app that I talked about that has the AI technology to answer students also has an option where they can um, put in their feedback, and it is also accessible in a parent mode for the parents. So in case a parent is not very happy with the curriculum or the kind of setting that the student is in, they can actually raise their concerns. Um, Apart from that, we have started a very new initiative from a brand point of view. We started a podcast where we are getting the Akash teachers to come and talk to the students. And we are taking the questions from the comments and the DMs that we get on our social media channels. And I think it's just about really answering the concerns of these students and the parents, because when you talk about such competitive exams, it's years of hard work that goes in, both from the parent and the child's perspective. So I think, yeah, the formulation and with COVID also that kind of came in, I think there was a shift to the technology point of view, and we came up with digital study materials. So we have the books, the physical books that go out, but they also have QR codes that students can scan, and it will take them to an online video on an app or on YouTube sometimes. With that, we also have live YouTube videos that go on. We have live solutions that go on the days of the exams. And I think just getting the feedback from the comments or the DMs that we get or grievances that we get on online through emails, and sometimes because it is also like the physical presence of Akash should not be denied with 300 branches. So it's the balance that we need to maintain. We can't go completely digital also. We're just trying to strike the right balance where we are trying to give the consumer what they need. So, and apart from Akash also, I think for any brand, if you listen to what your consumer is saying and you relate to their touch points, it's easier for them to actually go and get your products from the market, because I think it just works.
How does Nestlé has actually used customer feedback and curated certain products or maybe features specifically after listening to them on social media?
Right. So, actually, my experience on Netflix is very similar to what Anuj mentioned. So, the use cases are very, very similar. Of course, we do a lot of listening regularly, actively for content. So, it's important for our brands to be, topically present. So, whatever's happening, there needs to be content churned out very, very actively. But on the matter of product, I think now with digital, it's the best way to understand the direction in which the consumer sentiment is going before the consumer knows it themselves and be the first mover. So at Nestle, I am sure in a lot of FMCGs, there is a lot of consumer listening, social listening that happens, wherein we try to identify the trends that the consumer is talking about. So for example, a flavor of ice cream. So we will do an in-depth social listening on what are the flavors that consumers are talking about. We will evaluate those flavors on current volume, how many mentions are there, for example, for a strawberry flavor, which is, been there for long, and for maybe a new flavor like a orange mint or a Gulkand flavor, something new that is upcoming. So you will see the volume of mentions, you will see are the number of mentions growing month on month, year on year, quarter on quarter,
how many products are already there in the market for that particular flavor or variant. With these, you try and identify what are upcoming trends, what are trends which are already there, dormant, what are trends which are already mature, lot of products already there, great growth in terms of mentions, less number of products already there, but a huge spike in mentions, and then that feeds into the product development, the new product strategy for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So in most of these companies, the new product pipeline is actually initiated much in advance. You cannot launch a new product in a month. That just does not happen. And hence this active social listening and a lot of deep lipsticks need to continuously keep happening to understand the direction and the movement of trends and have readiness much in advance to be able to launch the product timely when the market is ready.
The uh, Nestlé, Nestlé has, besides Nestlé, we have also HUL, where we see that NPD is one of these trends. So, any example where you find that feedback from social media has helped you in enhancing a feature?
Yeah, definitely. I think the best thing about social media is that your feedback loop from consumer has become really short, right? You don't need to wait to launch something and analyze for 2, 3 years to see whether your product is working. You get really quick feedback. So I share one example, maybe two, one from Lipton. Many of you might know Lipton stands for weight loss. And I don't know how many of you have tried it, but it's kind of bitter. It kind of sucks, right? And we didn't know that until we started seeing all these memes on Instagram and on Facebook where there were memes about how BP is just too bitter to take. And then we did more social media listening and we found communities where there were a lot of these myths that were going around about Lipton is like Lipton or BP is this, BP is that, it's not effective. So that's when we realized that okay, we have two major problems on the brand. One is it doesn't taste that good. And second, people are questioning the credibility of the brand. And that then helped us launch new products within Lipton. So we just actually launched two new flavors, raspberry mint and lemongrass ginger. And again, these flavors like the panelists were mentioning, right? Came from social media listening. We looked at what are ingredients that are trending online, what are people liking to consume, and then develop the product and said, okay, raspberry mint seems like something that consumers would like, and of course, develop a product that's actually tasty. And to counter credibility, we realize, okay, what are some myths that are going around about the product, and we make an influencer campaign that tries to bust these myths. So in this way, we managed to use the feedback from consumer to develop our products better. And I think it's great, especially for a small brand that doesn't have the finances to do like deep consumer research and all. All you need to do is really do social media listening, and you get that feedback that you need for your product.
So we see that Google is listening to us quite frequently. So what are your experiences when it comes to social listening and then curating a new product or maybe certain launch decisions or
Um, they not listening.
so when I said listening, we saw that somebody wrote about Google Maps. One of the features which was missing, which was we see that we get confused whether we have to take the flyover or we have to go down. And so Google Maps did listen to us.
So, um, social listening happens in a couple of ways, right? Like in terms of, I can talk about the way the FMCGs are using it, and I can also talk to you about how the tech folks are using it. So from FMCG perspective, Amazon, I think, and especially for D2C players, as Ishita mentioned, that brands don't have a lot of money. And what do they end up doing? They end up doing a lot of social listening. So you go to the likes of Amazon to mine the reviews, and there are actually proper tools which help you mine reviews and tell you, okay, this is what the consumer needs. And those reviews are readily available not just for your brand, but they're available for competition brands as well. So that's one. So that's one aspect of social listening, which is very, very helpful in the B2C space. Second, for entity husband, great startup ideas come from communities. So I don't know how many of you are actually aware of Reddit or are active Reddit users. So there are extremely passionate communities of people uh, who talking about running, they'll be talking about bags, or they'll be talking about makeup, right? And they're localized as well. So uh, they are in certain geos and then local in nature also. So brands with their presence can actually learn a lot from these dedicated people who are curating data and moderating data for free. So that's another aspect of social listening. And so this is purely from like a D2C perspective. Now let me come to say a tech or say a lead generation perspective. So I work closely with a lot of BFSI clients, right? So if you look at say somebody from the likes of Zerodha or Five Pesa or Paytm or Pro, one of the things that they've actively done is that they want to figure out that what person or what consumer is going to have is like how do they earn revenue at the end of the day. One is on the number of transactions and second is on the value of the transaction. So for the person who's doing value of the transaction for whom that matters is somebody who's very very deeply into the stock market, somebody who knows about the sense of what an FNO is, correct, and who needs knowledge. So what they ended up doing is that they ended up curating a lot, especially as you talk about a very new brokerage client that I work with, that they listen to all what the FNO, like the angel investor working who wanted to take a derivative, what was that person looking for, and they ended up developing features related to that. That's one. Second was let's talk about a grow, right? So a grow or Zerodha, what they've been doing, Zerodha doesn't spend money on marketing, right? At all. What they've done is build stuff organically. What they figured was that consumers are actually looking out for content to upskill themselves on how to invest. So there is a complete module app, YouTube channel that Zerodha just has. Correct. I think Zerodha University, right? Velocity, whatever. So they have that which helps in upscaling the consumer. And something similar to what Go has also done. So at the end of the day, you need to create an ecosystem which will have the kind of consumers that you're looking for, listen to them through that ecosystem, and obviously listen to the consumer not from just your ecosystem but from the competition's ecosystem also. Jot that, get those insights all together and feed it into the kind of feature that you want to develop for your brand. And that can now be done in a very scrappy way because all of that data is very readily available to you online.
So I think we come to a point where we see that social media can be utilized in a good manner, but at the same time we see that social media is also a double-edged sword. So my question is specifically to Ishita that there are many times when brands do face a lot of troll and negative comments as well as interestingly in this age of social media it gains a lot of traction suddenly. So how does Nestlé creates a bit of balance between the brand reputation management and the authentic customer brand engagement?
So, like you rightly said, it is a double-edged sword. So, in today's day and age, if you're managing a brand, you're in marketing, just accept it. Just accept that there will be feedback. There will be positive feedback. There will be bad. It will be ugly. It will be brilliant. There will be feedback. You cannot stay away from it. It is a boon, and it can be a bane as well. It all depends on how you utilize it, how you use it. So, this is just a generic framework for any FMCG. If you are somebody who has strong, reputable brands and are getting some meaty consumer feedback, regular consumer feedback, you should have your mechanics in place. So you should have a team to continuously monitor, to continuously respond on your social media channels, on your customer care centers, to be able to engage with the consumer, respond to the consumer, be trained enough to be able to answer to the consumers in most ways. So having a robust team in place is the first step and it usually nips it in the bud wherein you are able to, they are able to export with export experience, able to respond to the consumer to the queries that they have. That's number one. Then you should also, at a higher level, try and consolidate the kind of queries that you're getting. When you're talking about social listening, this is also a part of that, wherein you should try and consolidate what is the sentiment, what are the key queries that you're getting, what are the kind of concerns that people are raising. Continue to adapt, add that to your repository so that you're constantly evolving and catering better to consumer queries, to consumer feedback, to consumer questions, to consumer comments on all platforms. The third very important one is to have a cadence and an escalation matrix in place. So if there is at one point there is a high risk or a high a query or a comment that requires attention, there should be a clear understanding within the organization as to whom that needs to be escalated to, whom that needs to be highlighted to. So people are not coming at that point in time. Now, in this scenario, it's important to understand the problem, engage with the consumer, apologize, acknowledge, solve, whatever the scenario may be in that situation. But important to engage, important to understand, important to be empathetic, humble, and important to solve the problem as soon as possible. You should continuously engage with the consumer to make sure that the problem is solved to the best of their desire and keep doing this. You have to keep continuously monitoring, continuously improving this process because it is inevitable. You cannot escape it. But if you do it properly, you will actually build brand loyalty and brand love with that consumer that you engage, this problem to solve, and you will have a customer for a much longer time than you would have had earlier. So it's an important thing, it is important to tackle it and use it well.
Digital channels that we are using, we see that there is a mushrooming growth in the B2C brands. And yesterday, I think there was news that Mama is now under the top three brands on skincare segment also by Euromonitor. So how does Unilever is adapting to these strategies of B2C, and what are the difficulties where you find that the traditional companies would face from transitioning from traditional model to a digital?
Got it. So I think Mama is like the poster child of D2C. I think we accept that they're ex-Unilever, but they did a really good job. And I think what we can learn from them is when does D2C work, right? Three main things, three main pros of doing D2C. One is that it's really helpful. It's really helpful when you're a new brand because you get the entire funnel data because you have your D2C brand, right? So you can try different, suppose you want to know what your proposition should be. You do a couple of ads and you lead them back to your D2C site and then you see what the consumer actually does, what product does she buy. So it's a great way to experiment and to then check what proposition works, what products are working, how is the consumer engaging on your brand. So very useful for a new brand. Number two is that it's a less capital intensive way to do things because you don't need to produce a lot to be say on an Amazon or a Blinkit or whatever. You don't need to produce a lot or get into traditional distribution channels like general trade. You can get a good idea by at least go from 0 to 1 purely through your D2C site. And I think the third advantage is that it helps you own your brand story. So for a new brand that doesn't have the money to pay you TV advertising and many ATL kind of campaigns, it allows you to own a story, tell a consumer what you stand for. Now, having understood this, for a big company like HUL, D2C is not very relevant because most of the brands that we have are huge brands, and hence the advantage we get is with scale. So it doesn't make sense for us to go D2C because the logistics are a lot, the revenue is going to be small. It's very difficult to acquire consumers. That's the biggest challenge of D2C, right? Because not only does first, you need to get them to know your brand, come to your website, and then from there have the trust to order something. All of this is a huge acquisition model. So for big brands, doesn't really make sense. Our leverage is our scale, and so it's easier for us to get our products onto an Amazon or quick commerce or of course general trade, which is huge for us. But at the same time, we do want to we do want to enter new spaces, and that's where D2C does become important. So for the Lakme, if it wants to enter cereals or something else, and you want to experiment, maybe it's important to have a D2C site and that end-to-end understanding of the consumer. But to be honest, you can like for a big company, you can enter a space, grow and learn without D2C. I'll give you an example of Simple, which is a space which is a face cleanser brand that we have. It was launched just a couple of years ago, and we decided to go e-com first. Not D2C, but really invest in your Nykaa, Myntra, Amazon, and got the same kind of learnings from doing performance marketing and really built the brand through digital. And we got that like that pilot helped us understand what the consumer wants and really did well for the brand. So I think at this point for a big FMCG firm, not extremely necessary to go D2C. Of course, like I was mentioning earlier, 1P data, these are things that are useful if you have D2C, but you can still win and play by going to these more democratized channels like e-com and quick com. So that's how we're balancing it at least in HUL.
Are going from B2C to using different other channels as well as they mature in their life cycle.
And even now, I mean, most of their revenues are B2B and
Yes.
it's not really B2C. So good for like initial 0 to 1 kind of journey for any brand.
Thank you. So Shreya, I'll come to you because we recently India hosted ITU WPSA at the Bharat Mandapam, where we see that many Indian companies raise their voices, especially pertaining to the data localization and showing the data in India itself in the same country. How do you see this change in the regulations which may impact giants like Google when it comes to their
So I think we touched upon this. So I think we touched upon this in a previous question where we spoke about the fact that privacy is what is trending and what is the most relevant topic right now. And when it comes to say the tech science that we have here, it Google I think as a company is at the end of the day going to follow whatever laws of the landscape, right? It's not something that you can't abide. You have to if you want to exist in the ecosystem. And that's one. Second, regulations exist for a reason. That's because users' data is critical, users' consent is critical. So, and three, the fact that you have have an amazing talent pool that can actually develop products to cater to the privacy concerns of the consumer is also something that Google is currently doing. So that these are the three things that we are looking at. But from a technology perspective, if you look at it, or from a new product perspective that you look at it. So as I mentioned, the way that the cookies are getting deprecated, user concerns are rising, we do have something where we need advertiser trust, where where we say that advertisers will end up sharing their first party data with Google or Instagram or Meta, and we do have like direct integrations in place with most of these companies, which enable us to know what their entire sales journey looks like. So, for example, if I'm an education institute like Akash, so I have an entire sales cycle, right, where I will have somebody goes and fills a form, then they will have a qualified lead, sales qualified lead, they'll have a marketing qualified lead, and at the end of the day, there'll be a purchase that is happening. As Google, I will only have data up till the form fill. After that, what happens is completely offline. I don't know what is happening there. But if Akash has enough trust that the data is all aggregated, it's not be consumed for any other purpose rather than that, what they will do is that they'll end up sharing that data and the AI will work or in a privacy centric manner to ensure that that data is useful for Akash at the end of the day to reach out to the right consumer. So one, so again it's a two-pronged thing. One is understanding, building advertiser trust in terms of the data usage that we are going to use. Two, and second is user control, where the end consumer should know that these are the controls that they have for privacy, and these are the settings and how the data is being used. So user consent becomes the second thing.
Thank you for your insights, Shreya. So, I'll post the next question to Anuj, where you will find that in healthcare segment, trust is one of the most paramount things when it comes. So, how does Dabur is able to manage and maintain the trust of the consumers while also, reaching out to the new age consumers who are now coming on the digital platform?
If you look at from the healthcare perspective, right, doctor was and always was the kind of the fulcrum of the entire value chain, right? A decade back, I think no one would have dared to ask a doctor about a prescription कि ये क्या लिखा है, क्यों लिखा है, right? But today, with the onset of information technology, Google and others, right? Doctors are today literally pissed off कि भाई the patient comes and asks कि ये क्या है, ये क्या है, because it's very difficult to answer. So you go to Jaslok Hospital in Mumbai, one of the cardiologists has very beautifully written outside his chamber. When you enter this room, please leave your Google knowledge outside. Yeah. So just to drive home the point, how things are, uh, at one end it is very good to have a knowledge, but the other end it becomes very complex for a doctor who has spent so many years, right, to kind of understand the disease landscape and kind of explaining each and everything to a patient. Uh, Coming to the point that ma'am has raised, that how do we at Dabur do that, right? The trust is paramount in the healthcare for a couple of things. First is obviously the quality of the product, right? We see that there's a lot of flag that is happening in the Western world for the brands that are there in the healthcare space from India. Yeah, you'll be surprised that in India we call Ayurveda as a science, but you go to US, you go to Europe, it's a food supplement. So here in India, we can sell Chyawanprash saying that it helps for blah blah cancer, this that. In US, you cannot do that. In US, it's a food supplement, be it ashwagandha, be it neem or whatever you call, right? So the quality of the product is paramount, and a lot of negative sentiments in the market, in the consumer, is about the quality of the product. So at Dabur, 140-year-old company, quality of the products non-negotiable, non-negotiable, right? There's a lot of team which is in India, in abroad. We kind of collaborate with a lot of scientists to kind of come out with the right solution for the particular things. Second one is that how you're perceived in the market, right? What's your brand perception? So Dabur, if anybody asks, typically the perception has been that it's a company with Dabur Chyawanprash, solution for health, Ayurveda, herbal, nutraceuticals, right? That has also created problem for Dabur, because when we want to get into new age brands, uh, new formats for that matter, like we have what we call power gummies, right? Yeah, gummies very important format. So we had a brand sentiment tool in which a lot of talk was happening on how does we have newer formats for conventional, brands like Ashwagandha or a Chyawanprash for that matter. So a lot of consumers they said that why don't we have Chyawanprash in a what do you call powder format, curry format, right? Or in a juice format, right? Because I don't like my dada dadi type or mom type format taste taking up, right? So, I mean, we want to get away from that, but the archetype that Dabur has, the brand positioning, in the mind of majority of the consumer is that Dabur for a Gen Z and a millennial, it's not for me. Another flagship brand we have Gulabari, yeah, Dabur Gulabari. So in Western countries and especially in India, we want to get into the high-end cosmetology, right? and we were kind of toying with the idea that can we launch Gulabari in a different formats, right? So there are new formats coming up, like so when you are exposed to a lot of TV or the mobile or the laptop screen, your eyes pains and strains, right? So we were looking at new formats of Gulabari to kind of have drops or patches, right, which kind of soothes you, yeah. So, but then the consumer research team came back and said, no, if we say Gulabari patches, the Gen Z and the millennial might not use that, right? Because the brand identity is that. So I mean, at our from a consumer standpoint, quality is non-negotiable. We do a lot of emphasis on conducting the clinical trials because in the media, in the Insta and LP, if you look at, there's a lot of tall claims that the brands make. हम ये भी कर देंगे, हम वो भी कर देंगे, right? But at the end of the day, if you are not able to justify your claims to a consumer, as my colleague was mentioning, tea, very interesting category, right? कि green tea पीते हैं तो we lose our weight. Somebody was drinking green tea for almost a year, and there was, instead of reducing the weight, it increased the weight. So I mean, yeah. So that are the problems. So very cautious with the claims because today's consumer will not pardon the brand for a false claim. Yeah. So I think healthcare per se, going forward, we will see a lot of churning that will happen in terms of the claim. Ministry of Ayush and the Ministry of IT, few months back, there was famous Baba Ramdev, yeah, that Supreme Court had a lot of flack, right? Because you are advertising something, you are claiming something, and the entire healthcare industry had to suffer for that. So when I went live on NDTV on September 29 for our campaign on World Heart Day, I had to submit a authorization to the Minister of IV that we are not going ahead with some tall claims now, right? So I think the landscape is changing, the policy shaping is changing, and the ever evolving consumer, I think our is nimble-footed to kind of take the advice and come out with solutions for the better health and kind of keep the Indian as well as global consumers healthy and fit.
You mentioned about changing landscape. We see that EdTech has actually made the education sector interesting landscape. So, what are the strategies, as far as you feel, that has worked for brand like Akash to retain students for it?
Yeah, I think as you said, there is a lot happening in edtech these days. As I mentioned earlier, also there are a lot of edtech companies that have come into existence from their social media presence and then expanded their presence physically. So I think with Akash, a few things that have worked is it has a lot of years of experience. So the treasury of content that Akash has, it's immense. Like the example of podcast that I gave. So this was the one idea that we floated with me and my team. We floated it with our management that you know this content that's missing. Like even if we are posting those success stories, we're not getting the engagement that we should. I mean, these students have cracked into the prestigious universities, but people are not getting the motivation I think that they need to. And I think podcasts or videos that are coming in the interview formats, it's very relatable to the generation today. So cut to that got accepted and I started just maneuvering through the content that we had and the amount of alumni that we have who are at prestigious places right now doing so great. I was amazed. And I think that was one. So we started that series. I was like, I don't think we're going to go out of content now. We are pretty sorted that way. The second thing, just connected to that, would be the success stories that has come out of the institute itself. Just we know that the students are getting successful, but how would somebody who's not a part of our class know about it? It's the way that you show your presence and you showcase those students, where they are, their journeys, their pain points, that really helped. Another thing is the personalization of learning that has happened over the years. So now we are starting batches where, as I said, we get constant student feedbacks. So just getting those feedbacks and a lot of students would not come to our faces and say, oh, you're curriculum is crappy. I didn't let that teacher. So they can anonymously post the feedback and we can work on it internally. And that was enabled due to technology. I mean, when we were young, it was very difficult for me to go and talk to my principal about a teacher that had a bad behavior or was not very present for my classes. But it's easier for them now. Apart from that, one thing that we have done is we have two PGs, the parents and the students. So for the parents, we have collaborated with KBC Amitabh Bachchan callouts that are going on around these days. And to cater to the other PG, that's the young kids, the Gen Zs, we collaborated with Rishabh Pant, who was like the setback hero. He came back, he came through, and that is what the most competitive exam journeys are like. It's very difficult to crack one. Some students take a year drop, some students face difficulties. They sit for the exams 2 or 3 times. So yeah, just as we discussed earlier, so the pain points and the touch points of the students, and the TG is very important. So once you have that, and you leverage your target audience pain point and the journey, it really accelerates the success of your brand, and technology just helps it in.
Thank you. So, as the panel member, as we are coming close to the end of this session, I would like to ask the panelists that there is a lot of change in the digital landscape. So, what are your suggestions when it comes to upskilling our students? So what new skill set our students should focus in order to succeed in the tomorrow's marketing world? We'll start with
Um, Even though the marketing landscape is changing, marketing per se will remain the same. It's about knowing your consumer at the end. Your 4Ps are not going anywhere, your customer segmentation is not going anywhere, it's just becoming digital. So unless and until your core basics of marketing are not in place, no matter you do it offline, you do it online, nothing is going to happen. So I think just the core basics of marketing uh, need to be there, that's one. And in terms of what you can upskill on, definitely, and this was what I was talking to ma'am also about, is how do you leverage data, specifically analyze different use cases for brands. So, for example, if I'm getting data from a social, or I'm getting data from a Google review or an Amazon, or offline using my lipstick or HGTs, so on and so forth. How do I combine all of that data to make sense? So that's something we should that we should definitely upskill on, because at the end of the day, data is data, but how do you make sense of that data is what we need to know. And also second, and very important, is how do you use these AI chatbots, because I think they'll make life a lot easier. So at least use them to automate a lot of your routine things in life. So writing emails and figuring out what to type and text, etc. I think that all is very sorted once you know the right prompts. And that doesn't require like a different course altogether, but just that makes life a lot better.
So, completely agree with what Shreya mentioned. I think data analytics is very crucial. We're spoiled for choice today. There's so many things to do, but what to do and why to do it, you can only derive if you are able to make sense of the so many data points that you have. So, definitely very important. I'm sure marketing foundations basics is something that you will have sorted since you are here already. Um, for me, I think there are two things that are really that I wish the new upcoming marketers could have, and I think that it really help with your success. First is soft skills. You know, um, when you get into your job, when you get into marketing, or whatever role you get into, whatever work that you're doing, it's not like school or college anymore. It's a lot less spoon feeding. What you do, how you do it, how you engage with people, how you manage stakeholders, how you showcase your work is all on you. Now you are the one who is responsible for your career. Nobody else is. School still they will do you through college Your teachers there, they will pull you through. They also have a shared joint responsibility. But once you move out of college, it is completely your responsibility. So please try to interact more, try to put yourself out there, try to engage with stakeholders, build your personal speaking capabilities. Very, very important. The sooner you're able to build on these, the sooner you're able to have this realization, I assure you it will help you in your career. The second thing is please don't think that you've done your MBA, now you know everything. Nobody knows everything. We are here as well, have to be lifelong learners. So please have a healthy level of intellectual curiosity. Be willing to learn, unlearn, relearn, because the world is changing so fast. What you learn today may not be relevant 5 years later. And if you continue to believe that I know everything and I'm this MBA, I'm so sound theoretically, you may not be relevant 5 years later. So please have these two in your mind. Wishing you all the best. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so I think Ishita made a point, learn, unlearn, and relearn. And it reminds me of one of my favorite authors, Eric Topler's quote, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but essentially those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So these three are very, very important. Learning is very important. I will say very easy in terms of now. You can learn the plethora of options, right? Al Qaeda made their first bomb, by just looking at YouTube. You must be surprised, right? So learning is very easy. You can make a complex thing as complex as a bomb by watching a YouTube. We were stuck in Bali. We had an annual conclave there. So we had a presentation and somebody's what do you call bag was locked. You know, because the dress and everything is what do you do at 8 p.m. in the night? That will Bali. So somebody opened the YouTube and how do you open it? So I mean you can learn, but the other very very critical and very important part is that you also have to be very open to unlearn. That is the toughest part, which I can certainly relate to. Unlearning takes a lot of humbleness, lot of open-mindedness, and to know that yes, I'm wrong. I have met Suresh sir a couple of times, Ishita's yes, my boss, Mohit Malhotra, who is also from IIFT. These CEOs are very, very humble people, very eager to learn, right? And she said very rightly that, yeah, bhaiya to MBA ho gaya, so good kind of and go, I'm just comfortable. That's not the case. I had the chance of meeting Philip Kotler some time back, and he was giving a lecture, and some company was in healthcare, and he was not knowing. He asked from the podium. He asked, "Can anybody help me with that company? I don't know." So father of marketing telling that I don't know. Yeah, and the paradigm of that is the recent spat between Kunal Kamra and what do you call Bhavesh Agarwal, right? Pathetic way of handling things, right? You should never come across as an arrogant person, right? The other important part is that we have to be very connected to the customer. At the end of the day, whatever gyan, whatever knowledge we have, it's for the customer, betterment of the customer. Just to drive home the point, a brand like Yakult, yeah, yeah. The success of brand Yakult came not from some marketing genius or something. In Japan, when they were selling, typical juices, how it will come? The Karela juice, Jamun juice, neem juice, 1 liter, right? Somebody from the sales, he went and at a store, a Japanese consumer walked up and said, "Why don't you have shots, so that every day I gulp it and then throw it out, right?" And then Yakult became a very big brand. So we took that learning and our we are working on the juices, juice shot as a range, detox shots as a range. So every day you go to home, out of home, gulp it, throw it, right? So having an ear to the consumer is very, very important. And at last, be voracious to learn from various segments, and stay humble. That's my only submission to everybody. Thank you so much.
So ask for suggestions for upskilling our students.
Yeah, so I'll come to that, but just building on what Ishita and Atul said. So when I completed my MBA, and I was not in I was in Canada, I was not in India when I was doing my MBA. The place was new. Like in India, if I'm working right now, I know the market. I know the mindset of these people. There, I didn't know anything. And when I completed my MBA, we didn't have a lot of placements, and it was not very easy for a student who was not an Indian to get a job in the Indian market, that too in branding and marketing where they know that you don't know the consumers. So how I started was I did a sales job for 2 years. I was selling home insurance to these people. And how I learned about the market was just talking to these people on phone. I would have 10 minutes call and I would sell an insurance in like 5 minutes and the rest time I was talking and getting to know about their culture, their jargon. And it really helped me. Like I was talking to them and I got to know how they pronounce certain words, how it was very different from how we talk in India. And one thing I learned, and it's very funny also, their small talk is always about the weather. So if somebody is from the other part of the country and they're calling you in the West Coast, they're like, yeah, how's the weather there? And that's what I learned. So every networking meeting that I had, my first thing was, so how's the weather? Are you enjoying it? It's sunny, right? So I think my point is that everyone you meet and every conversation you have in the world outside your college, and even here, you learn a lot from people, from their behavior. And second thing was when I completed my MBA, Meta came out, and everything that I had learned, I had to convert because nothing was relevant in the market anymore. So I had to go on Coursera, upskill, learn, get meta certificates again. So my MBA, like it's not wasted because obviously like I had capstones and I had case studies and I was working with real time clients. But at the same time, I learned that that the market is so dynamic that you have to be on your toes all the time. You need to be very sharp with all the things that are coming. The Google algorithm changing every now and then. And with that, I think another thing is networking. I have never shied away from just sending a LinkedIn invite without knowing the person. I would just say, hey, I liked your profile and I think you're doing a really big job. Let's connect. And most of the freelance contracts that I got was through those cold outreaches that I did on emails, on LinkedIn, and sometimes just while traveling on metro. And I think as a marketer, you just need to be very open and building on what Ishita said, having a very strong communication skill, work on your skill sets. Don't shy away from talking to people or asking questions, as Arnav said. If you don't know anything, just ask. And I think everybody, if I know something and she doesn't, I would be happy to tell you how it works. And it would vice versa. If I know something, I would be happy to talk about it. So yeah, all the best, and I think you enjoy when you get real jobs and start working hands-on. Yeah.
And for what are your suggestions for any courses or any specific skills that
Yeah, I think largely I agree with what the panel said, right? Your fundamentals are not going to change. It's only the context that's changing. So I think just be curious to keep learning and be updated with what's happening in the world. I think I'll just end with a couple of recommendations. When it comes to the world of Meta, Google, there's a lot of content out there. In fact, even Google and Meta themselves have put so much content out there to just learn the basics of SEO, of how advertisements work, how do you auction, things like that. It's always a good thing to understand that even if you're on the brand side, it's important for you to understand how these platforms work. So pick up a digital marketing foundation course. There are like hundreds of them online. Pick one up. They're all pretty much the same. And upskill yourself. A couple of books and podcasts. Given that AI is becoming a big thing now, it's important that you don't just use it as like whatever jargon. Really understand what it is. So two books I think that are fantastic. One is this book called AI 2040, I think, which is really good and paints a picture of where AI is going to go, and it has a lot of examples, so you'll understand it better. The other one is this book by an author called Ethan Mollick, which again it's a short book, very simply explains what exactly Gen AI, LLM, all of these things are, and it's important for you to equip yourself with this understanding. You can also pick up podcasts. I mean, the easiest one would be just follow Conclave. He does really good content on what Gen AI is and how his company. I don't know if you all know, he has his own ad company, a marketing company. How he's using AI in the marketing world, and Tanya is a great storyteller, so it's easy to follow what he's saying. But if you want to go in depth, you can follow the 10,000 hour podcast, which really goes in depth on topics. If you really want to get into it, that's another good way to upskill yourself. So yeah, just be curious and try to read and get deep onto some of these topics if you want to stay relevant and future fit.
Thank you. And now we will be participating in a rapid fire, and which is also the last segment of the National Marketing Summit. So I'll be giving, you have to make certain logos of the brands, and then you will make a quick comment about their branding strategies. We'll start this way.
We were talking about policy development. So policy, so this one liner, right?
Yes.
Um, I think you've done fantastically on like customer base is super awesome. The way that it's grown, crazy. That's yes. I think everybody here has seen marketing by Zomato. Everybody here, so that just proves they're doing a great job because you are their target audience. Be it influencer marketing, meme marketing, topical marketing, I think they are forthcomers and they've done a tremendous job in targeting the Gen Z, talking to you in your language, in the moments that are most relevant to you, of course, supplemented with a lot of discounts that never harm. So I think very well curated Gen Z relevant marketing is what Zomato specializes in, and they've done it really well.
Let's start. Fantastic work. That was a very mundane kind of category, right? Yeah, somebody is wearing glasses. Yeah. So yeah, how do you make it glamorous? And they have done fantastically well both offline and online. And I think good work there. Also, Basar, I just wanted to add one point. What they fantastically did was insurance as a segment. Nobody buys that, right? So they built out three Ds. D, death. Second D was disease, and third was death. Death, disease, and death. So if you die, you leave your family in a death trap, right? Beautiful work by both the companies, and let's start off with thank you.
Ask.
So mine is Vida. I think it's a pretty known brand. I think it's a youth-centric brand, and they do tremendous marketing. It's a hip culture, modern, and the look and feel of the brand resonates with their TV. I think that's the tremendous work that they've done. And we all hop to the jingles. Start we start shaking our heads when the jingle comes on. So I think it's a tremendous work for sure for the DG.
Yes. Monica.
Okay, board. Board, I think, very trendy, very topical. But in the world of Apple and Google, I think they need to figure out their brand personality.
Thank you so much. So we will now be open for taking a quick question, couple of them. Any questions from the students? Yeah. Tanush, I think you will start.
question, and I was honestly reading up about something similar yesterday. And when it comes to, and we spoke about this also, is the fact that right now what is going on is how Instagram has penetrated in the Indian market with Instagram Reels, right? And it was actually built in India. The concept of Reels is India centric, that's one. Second, why is YouTube doing all stuff that it is doing is to build a lot of is to build features that are showcasing interaction. So for example, when I'm talking about Instagram, not only am I and if I tie up with an influencer, not only am I promoting my brand, but I'm also getting promoted to the followers of that influencer. So that this community building happening, and second, there is a certain amount of engagement also that is happening. But now when it comes to YouTube, YouTube has that brand perception of being one related to long form content, right? It's not standing for something at this point in time. It's a one stop hub for everything. That's how it's being positioned. But uh, you have now that you have YouTube Shorts in the picture, you have stuff like 10,000 upvotes and stuff like that, where they're trying to get that community angle playing field. So as you move on, you need to understand the fact that the the Gen Zs, the new age consumer, what they're asking for, and two, how are they engaging with you also. And as a result, YouTube as a platform also has to grow up and grow up faster so that they're able to cater to that consumer.
Good afternoon, I'm Shiva Naituri. Since we know that sales is an integral part of FMCG, but we have seen that on-ground retailers have sometimes mismatched strategy with the strategy the he has been applying. So how can we let the retail side and can undo doing retailers in the digital strategy that the brands have been applying?
That's actually a very good question because retailers and the trade is equally important to an FMCG company as a consumer. And at least at HUL, I think there's a lot of technological development that we've done even on the retailer side. So traditionally, you had your salesman who goes to the shop and gets orders. But now we have an extremely innovative app called Shikhar, which allows your retailers to order online itself. And here you have a lot of machine learning that's built in. So if a retailer has particular orders that they placed in the previous month, the app will suggest, okay, I think your inventory would be low on this. You should purchase this, or any new innovation that we're launching. It helps you target the right retailer as well. So if there's a retailer that anyway buys say sunscreen, probably the right place to sell in sunscreen there will see them, or like a high premium retailer, better to target any premium innovations to that retailer. So in this way, technological advancements are helping us connect with the retailer as well. And the good thing is, retailer is also a consumer at the end of the day. Like he's like you or me. So he is getting digitally native. He is getting he is also connected online. So if you are able to create a good user interface for him in the terms of the app, then he's going to use it. And so there's a lot of incentive for him to use the app as well. So these are some ways that you can connect to the retailer as well using all of these new tech platforms.
Adding on to that question and answer of Monica, at Dabur, what has happened, and some of the FMCG companies happen. there has been a huge mismatch between the stock inventories, right? And some of the stocks, typically from the e-com and the quick commerce, that has also gone into the the normal GT channel. So the sales from a sales standpoint, the fight always what I hear from the field is that आपने e-com पे ज़्यादा discount दे दिया, yeah, my GT is suffering, right? But in the longer run, what will happen is we will have to find a common playground, right? Because e-com has different dynamics. Yeah, quick commerce has different dynamics, right? But at the same time, GT, you cannot let GT suffer. GT is very critical and will be critical, right? And apps like Shikhar, we have our own app in Dabur, right? They kind of help the sales team to kind of get the sales call and the planning in a much better way. One of the very good examples that I've come across in terms of the retailers, yeah, kind of building the stocks from the data point is Asian Paints. So Asian Paints, if you do a case study, they have fantastic data points. Kind of retailer sitting in Virar in Mumbai, he will know that today what kind of shades of the paints will be going from Rajasthan. So, but they have not gone into the e-com and the other spaces. So the network that we are looking at from a 360 angle, the GT, the e-com, the quick commerce, right, and the others. From a company standpoint, it has to boil down to a holistic approach, right? We see a lot of traction in the e-com and especially quick commerce, growing by double digits, 150%, right? But over the period of time, I see a lot of stabilization coming in and a lot of kind of harmonization in terms of the price points that can be there.
We have now come to the end of what has been a very engaging and insightful panel discussion. Before we conclude, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our panelists, Preeti ma'am and the OT who has made this event a very big success. First and foremost, a special thank you to Ishita ma'am for sharing a valuable perspective on community building in a continuously evolving world and how to justice platforms in the same. Your perspective added depth and nuance to our discussion and we are truly grateful for your contribution. Next, we would like to thank Shreya ma'am for insightful contribution on how a company like Google caters to brand consumers in a paradigm where the consumers attention span is continuously shortening and how to leverage data to the same. Your expertise has provided us with a deeper understanding and valuable context which has been greatly enhanced by today's session. A heartfelt thank you to Bamita ma'am for thought-provoking insights on leveraging offline and online storytelling, especially when it comes to how to fight myths and modernize brands. Your thoughtful responses and analysis has really enriched our discussion today. Next, we extend our gratitude to Asha ma'am for sharing her expertise on how to build loyalty, especially with regards to intergenerational loyalty in the education sector. Your dedication to fostering creativity and harmony is truly inspiring. A special thanks to Anand sir for his comprehensive insight on the unique way the pharmaceutical industry works and the consumer healthcare sector are integrated with AI. Your experience and comprehension have not only informed us, it also sparked further curiosity among our audience. We would also like to acknowledge our esteemed moderator, Dr. Ishita, for guiding the discussion with remarkable skill and insight. Your expertise and passion for marketing and education have made this event even more engaging and interactive. Thank you, ma'am. In conclusion, we are grateful for the wisdom and insights shared by our esteemed panelists, as well as the enthusiastic participation from our audience. On behalf of Brandwagon, the marketing and research lab of IIFT, I would like to thank you all for being part of the National Marketing Summit. Together, we have laid the foundation for a brighter future in marketing.